Hey, welcome everyone to the Resilient Living podcast. Today, I'm here with my co-host Jared Wilson and our special guest Adam Martin. We're going to be talking about natural beekeeping, which I'm really excited about, and I've kind of joked around with people that I'm having him on so that I can learn about this and ask him the questions I want to. So, and you just I'll get to come along for the ride. So, welcome, Adam. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, we're excited to have you here. How are you doing, Jared?
We're doing pretty good.
Good. Well, today I don't think we have a product spotlight, so we're just going to kind of jump into it. Adam, can you tell us a little bit about your growing up? Like, how did you get into beekeeping? But before that, what were you doing in high school? How did did you go through college? What's your background?
Oh man, I wasn't expecting that. You throw me a curveball right at the beginning. That's amazing. Uh, no, Leslie and I grew up in Bakersfield, California. I'm sure you've heard the Merle Haggard song "Streets of Bakersfield," maybe. The Bakersfield Sound, Buck Owens, all that stuff. So we grew up out there, um, and we met in junior college. She went to a different high school than myself, so we met in junior college, hanging out at some college Christian parties, um, and that's how we met. Not a school person is what you could describe me as. It's pretty funny when I go back. I have my old report cards. They used to send us home with report cards back in the day, and the teacher would make a little note on the back of it. And I'm not kidding you. From probably the first grade on, the teachers just talked about how Adam loves recess. Adam loves to look out the window. Adam has a really hard time paying attention in class. Like all the things that classic boy. And so I really struggled through school, and just had no direction. So I went to junior college, started studying fire technology. I decided I wanted to be a fireman when I was about 18. And long story short, I ended up blowing out my knee, ACL. I'm still living in California, and that was kind of a. I don't want to get political, but there was some reasons why I couldn't become a fireman in California, uh, and especially with my knee problem. And so what I did was my grandpa was a licensed surveyor and civil engineer, and my dad was a surveyor, field surveyor, and so I just kind of fell into field surveying. I could make a decent hourly wage, and I just started learning the trade, basically doing property surveys, that sort of thing. And that's pretty much how I that was my livelihood at the beginning. Leslie's a she actually went to school for math. She got a math degree to teach, figured out that she didn't like kids, so that probably wouldn't be a very good fit for her.
That's fine.
And then she's over here listening right now. She said teenagers, so that is different than kids, I guess.
I get that.
Yeah, and she ended up becoming a civil engineer, actually, which was kind of interesting. So we ended up working together for quite a while. Me doing the surveying, her doing the civil engineering, working underneath my grandfather. And basically, what happened was, we were living in California, living in the rat race, in debt up to here, living the American dream, so to speak. And we started taking road trips. When we moved back to California, because we had moved away for a time, when we moved back, Leslie was really upset when we moved back. And I just told her, I said, we're moving back for family. We've got all of our grandparents still alive, and we just want to take some time and basically be with them towards the end of their lives. But I told her, I said, we are going to get out of here again someday. And when we leave California the next time, we're never coming back. It's going to be the end of it. And so anyways, she had her big boy job as a civil engineer. I was doing contracting at that time, this would have been about 2016, 2015, somewhere in there. We started taking road trips out west, and our idea was to move to Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, somewhere up in the Rockies. I'm a mountain man. I love the mountains, and that's what we were thinking. Well, on these road trips, we started listening to books, and it was 2015. Rand Paul was running for president in the primary, and I was keen on him being a libertarian, freedom-loving conservative. So we listened to his book, and he mentioned Joel Salatin in that book, and we ended up listening to Joel Salatin's book, Folks This Ain't Normal. And it's funny. I've still to this day never seen Food Inc. Please don't crucify me for that. I probably need to sit down and watch it at some point. But like everybody's just like, oh yeah, when I saw him on Food Inc., that like changed everything. Well, for us, it was Folks This Ain't Normal. And when we listened to that book, we just at the end of it, we looked at each other and I was like, we're going to start doing this. We know that the food system is poison. We're young. Like, let's just start raising chickens for eggs. Let's do some meat birds. Let's raise a garden, fruit trees. Like, let's just start doing this. And so we did on a really small scale. We're still both working. Well, what happened was I had some family that had moved out to Tennessee ahead of us, and we didn't even think about Tennessee. It was not on the radar at all. I didn't want to move to the muggy and buggy South, you know. And anyways, my nephew at the time, he was like 15 years old, 14, 15. He said, you need to come out and check out Tennessee. And I was like, I don't know, you know, muggy and buggy, I don't know. So we just were like, what the hey, let's go out there, let's go check it out. So we came out here twice, and on the second time, we were driving down some country road out in the sticks, not far from where we live right now. And I remember coming around this corner. It was just beautiful green trees, you know, over the road. And we come around this bend, and there's 3 trucks sitting in the road side by side. All their windows are down, and there's 3 guys in there talking to each other. And right then and there, I said, "This is where I want to live. Where that is normal, I want to live here." You know, and it was just like 3 old boys just sitting there talking. So we made the move in 2018. We finally sold our house early in 2018. We moved to Middle Tennessee summer of 2018, and by November of 2018, we had bought a little farm, 5 acres with a house on it, and then we ended up soon thereafter picking up another 6.5 acres. So we're on about 12 acres total. It's a little basket case farm. This area was mined for phosphate. Strip mined, and there's also saltpeter caves underneath us. So, you know, it's Tennessee. If you sprinkle something on the ground, it'll start growing. We have, you know, they say everything's bigger in Texas. I'm not so sure that Texas has 7-foot tall weeds in June, but we here in Tennessee, we have 7-foot tall weeds right now in our garden. It's insane. So anyways, you know, we checked out the growing season here in Tennessee. We checked out the state government, which was important to me. You know, just more freedom, more liberty, less government. There was a lot of things that we liked about that. And, yeah, we got going here. So we got here January 1, 2019. We literally moved onto the property on New Year's Day. And within a week or two, we had found some chickens on Facebook Marketplace, I think, or Craigslist. And we went out and grabbed those chickens, and then within 24 hours, I had procured a Great Pyrenees puppy to protect those chickens. I knew that was one of the things, like, we're going to have a Great Pyrenees on our homestead. That's a no. We're going to do that no matter what. And then soon thereafter, I ordered my first 3 packages of bees. So before this all happened, like in December-ish, we had gone to the local farmers market, and we met Kevin and Mickey Krause there, who they own Liberty Trace Farms in Hampshire, which is 20 minutes down the road from us, 25 minutes. And we started buying things from them because they were producing meat, they were producing beef, pork, eggs, and we just started quizzing them about what they were doing. These were real life homesteaders, and we're like, okay, what all are you doing? You know, tell us about your property. Can we come over and look at it? You know, and because we knew nothing, we knew nothing. And they were super gracious, and one of the things that they said was bees. We have bees, and I was like, huh, bees. I love honey. I've been eating honey my whole life. We take honey every day in our coffee and tea, and we know honey's medicine. You know, I still love peanut butter and honey sandwiches. It's my go-to breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, dessert. I could survive on peanut butter and honey, I'm pretty sure. So doing honey was kind of a no-brainer as far as like we purchase honey every day. So let's start working on things that we purchase and start growing those things. So
Yeah, reducing your cost, right?
yeah, because our goal was certainly to become as sustainable off of our property as we possibly could. The less inputs, the better. Let's figure out how to grow as much as we can right here. 12 acres is a decent sized piece of property to grow a lot of stuff. So let's figure out how to grow as much as we can here and just really reduce our dependency on the modern food supply.
Cool. Hey, Adam, I think we're still getting pretty decent echo. It may be if your computer speakers are on instead of the headphones.
I know for sure that that's happening. I was hoping you would ignore it.
Unfortunately,
I don't know
it's
what
coming through.
happened. Okay, let me go over here again.
Sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, no worries. That happens.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think Jared and I both moved in from out of state. Similar, not the same stories, but same kind of idea. Like we're looking for more freedom. We're looking to homestead, grow our own food, things like that. Jared, how far away? I know California is huge. I don't know the topography or the region well at all. How far away were you guys from each other?
Oh, wait. So Bakersfield was about an 8-hour drive for me because I went down to Bakersfield because I oversaw Adventist hospitals from Bakersfield to Portland, Oregon, and Bakersfield was my furthest south. So it was a little over 8 hours.
Okay.
Where were you at?
Paradise.
Oh, Paradise, which is a pile of ashes now, isn't it? I mean,
it's trying to
Okay.
pull a phoenix and rise from the ashes.
15-minute city.
So it's coming back. I think 10% of the sites have been rebuilt.
Okay. I love Northern California. If it wasn't for the state government, to be honest with you, I would 100% move back to Northern California in a heartbeat.
Yep, I miss it.
Beautiful area. Rocky Pines is saying he's a transplant from CA2, but he's over in northern Arizona now.
He was here, but he left us. He abandoned us.
It's unfortunate. So, Adam, you kind of gave us the, how you got into beekeeping. How did you end up discovering natural beekeeping? And along with that, what is the difference? Because I know I heard you at, I think it was Back to the Land Festival a few years back. I'm sitting at my booth and I hear this guy just barely, can't fully hear you, but I'm hearing bits. And I'm like, that's what I thought I should be able to do with bees. And I was told I can't. And so I want to hear a bit about how you ended up figuring out or stumbling on natural beekeeping and maybe what some of the differences are in a nutshell.
Yeah. So I got those 3 packages of bees, and then it was crazy. And the bee club, the local bee club, always kind of follows what's coming up in the bee season. And so I went to I know for sure it was the March meeting that year. I just got my 3 packages. I installed them in vertical hives. I'm up and running and super excited. I came down one day and I told Leslie, I don't know what I have to do to make a living doing this, but this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It's bees. I love the bees and I want to work with bees. So I went to that March meeting and they talked about swarm catching and swarm trapping. And I was all ears. I'm a hunter, I'm a fisherman, and they just talked about it and said, yeah, all you got to do is build a box, put frames in it, bait it with lemongrass essential oil, throw it up in a tree, and you'll trap bees. And I'm like, there is no way that is that easy, So I came home that day super excited. I talked to some of the old timers at the bee club, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're new, you're excited, but yeah, it's easy. It's no big deal. But it's interesting because, like, those guys were doing it, but it just wasn't, like, something that they were promoting necessarily. It was just like, oh, yeah, you can trap feral bees, you can catch feral bees, but you know what? You need to buy packages, you need to buy nukes of bees, that's the way to get bees. So I came home that day, and I immediately built 2 swarm traps out of broken down goat shed that we had on this property. Just started cutting plywood and whatever I had. And by the next morning, I had 2 swarm traps ready to go. I put one up on top of our hill, which is only about 200 yards from where I'm sitting right now. And then I actually I loaned one to my buddy, who we were on the same path at the same time. And he's a little bit more analytical when it comes to these things. And so he's going to take like 3 weeks to build a swarm trap, and it's going to be perfect, you know. Me, I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just going to put this thing together, and I don't care what it looks like. And so anyways, I did that. And April 29th of 2019, I was doing my like daily vigil of going up there, checking the swarm trap, seeing what was going on. And, you know, early on, I saw a couple bees coming and going, you know, and I had to learn, like, what is this? There's a couple bees. I see a couple bees flying around it, in and out of the entrance, you know. And I had a mentor at the time, and I started talking to him, and he's like, oh, those are scout bees. They're just checking it out, you know, just leave it alone. Keep baiting it every 7 to 10 days or whatever, and you might trap a swarm. And he wasn't really, it's funny, he wasn't really into swarm trapping either. Like, it was like one of those things. He'd rather just buy packages of bees. So anyways, April 29th, 2019, I went up the hill like 10 or 11 o'clock, and I saw probably 25 to 50 scout bees going in and out of the trap, all flying all around the trap, underneath every seam. And I'm seeing this for the first time, you know, in real life, and I'm just like, I think those are all scout bees, and like, this is crazy. This is a lot of bees. Like, they're coming. And we had an appointment that day, so I came down, got Leslie, we jumped in the car, went to Columbia, and we got back. It couldn't have been an hour and a half later, and I ran up the hill, and I was watching, and as soon as I got to the trap, I watched the last few bees go into that trap, and I left them up there. I called my mentor right away. I was like, what do I do now, you know? And he's like, just leave them alone. Don't look at them. Don't touch them. Just leave them alone for 10 days. You need to let them settle in there. Trust me. And then bring them down. Put them in their forever home. So that was a huge swarm. And when I'm talking huge swarm, I'm talking like a watermelon-sized swarm. It's a prime swarm during swarm season. It's about 25,000 bees, which is only half of the bees of the colony. And it's a monster swarm. So I did all those things, and then about the same time or before that, I trapped that swarm. Leslie called me in to watch a video. I was following Off Grid with Doug and Stacy and watching some of their videos on different things, and she called me in and said, hey, they did a video on bees. You're going to want to watch this. So I sat down to watch this video at lunch, and it was something like Everything That's Wrong with American Beekeeping by Russian Dr. Leo. And I'm like, I'm not watching this propaganda. There's no way. And she's like, no, you need to watch it. You'll get a lot out of it. So I watched that video, and in 45 minutes, Dr. Leo made the case for horizontal hives being better for the bees and the beekeeper, and then made the case for free feral bees being the best bees you can get because they're hardy, they're locally adapted to your area, they've overwintered, they're just better bees than you can get. And he did talk about sugar water and not feeding sugar water, and you know, he went down the natural path that I had never heard before. I didn't even know this was an option. And really, honestly, to that point, there were people in America, obviously, doing natural, sustainable beekeeping methods, but that, because Off Grid with Doug and Stacy has such a platform, that video got out to a ton of people. And so that was what, like, when I watched it, I immediately sent it to my buddy Danny that I was telling y'all I let him borrow one of my swarm traps. I said, you need to watch this video. And 45 minutes later, he called me back, and he's like, oh my gosh, you know? And he's like, everything he said makes sense with what we're already seeing, what we're already doing. And I said, yeah. And so that got me building horizontal hives right then and there. I got my few horizontal hives built. The first trapped swarm, the watermelon swarm, on April 19th or April 29th, 2019, I put in a horizontal hive. And that summer, I went on every single bee call I could go on. If somebody called me and said, hey, we got bees in a tree, do you want them? I said, yes. If they said, hey, we got bees living in a house, in an abandoned house out in who knows where, do you want them? I said, yes. And I continued to trap swarms. I went and did cutouts, and I ended up going into the fall with 9 colonies of bees total. So I was super excited, and I'm like, I'm doing this thing. I'm gonna blow this thing up, and I mean, I'm gonna be a pro, you know. Um, and then I got humbled right away. The yellow jackets showed up in the fall, and they wiped out about 4 or 5 of my colonies before first frost. Uh,
Ouch.
and remind me, I'm going to tell you why I think that happened. But I ended up losing all of my colonies of bees over that first winter, except for one colony of bees. And I know you guys know which colony of bees survived. It was that swarm that I put in that horizontal hive. And right there, that just convinced me. These are better bees than I can buy. They're hardy bees, and this is what I'm going to do. I know how to trap them. I know it's easy. I'm just going to do that. So the rest is history on that. A lot of what I like, the natural sustainable beekeeping, I center, and I tell this to people, it's in my book. My worldview is that God created bees perfect in the beginning, and that all of the problems that honeybees have today have to do with the three of us and everybody else living on this planet. That we have been terrible stewards in the past of a lot of things, including
Sure.
honeybees. That the beekeeping industry is a commercial, big ag, big money industry, and that those techniques in keeping bees, those techniques get, they get passed down from the commercial industry to the ag extensions, or to
Mm-hmm.
the universities
Yeah.
to the ag extensions to the local bee clubs. And next thing you know, we are told to keep bees just like the big boy commercial
Yep.
beekeepers in our backyard. And my buddy and I, we were both, trying to eat as clean as we can, and those things. And so one of the things at the bee club, and this is controversial, but I don't care, and I'm starting to care less and less and less by the minute, is that commercial beekeepers feed sugar water and they feed high fructose corn syrup. And they do that 9 months out of the year, basically. They only allow the bees to store nectar during the nectar flow, and then as soon as it's over, they steal all of the honey
Mm-hmm.
and they put the feeders right back on. I just actually dropped a little screenshot of a post, and I took some flack for it the other day on Facebook, of a guy here in Middle Tennessee selling 275-gallon totes of high fructose corn syrup 55 to beekeepers. And I'm just like, how is that ethical? How is it healthy for the bees? You know, they will tell you at the bee club that sugar water is the same as nectar, exactly the same. And I'm sure they would say that, and I'm sure they would say the
Yeah.
same thing about high fructose corn syrup.
Sure.
They would say that all three of those things are exactly the same. I am not a rocket scientist. I told you I'm a junior college. I went to junior college for 5 years and didn't learn anything, except I did find my wife. It does not take a rocket scientist to question that right there. That
Yeah.
sugar water and nectar cannot be the same things. And so if you go and you do a quick little Google search on what's in nectar, you're going to find a laundry list, 3 complex sugars, essential minerals, vitamins, all kinds of things. Us three know, and all your listeners know, every single flower out there has medicinal purposes. That medicine in that nectar that the bees store in their hive is the best honey they could possibly eat. It's their medicine cabinet. It's their food. It's everything. And so, the commercial beekeepers, and, that's what's taught down at the local bee club. I was told, you got to feed your bees. You bought 3 packages of bees. You got to load them up with sugar water. If they'll take it, give it. That's exactly what they told me. And I'm like, well, what about the honey? And they're like, hey, listen, it's cheaper to feed bees sugar water than it is to feed them honey. That's right. That's true, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
right.
But does that mean it's ethical? Does that mean it's right? No, it doesn't. So that first year, I did exactly what they told me to do. I fed those bees all sugar water, and I already
Sure.
told you what my outcome was. I was actually, because I was, more natural, I'm like, I'm going to give them in the sugar water. I could buy a supplement that I could put in there that's got like essential minerals and oils and all the things that they would get from flowers, right? And I'm going to put this in here, and it had this awesome smell. You could smell it from a long ways away. Well, I am 99% sure that I baited those yellow jackets to show up to all my hives because I was
Mhm.
feeding them in a community feeder, and the honeybees and the yellow jackets were in there eating that feed.
Sure.
And then as soon as I pulled the feeder, my colonies started collapsing one at a time, and they started at the smallest, and they just worked their way up the ladder. Before I could even figure out what was going on, I had already lost 4 or 5 colonies. So I
Ouch.
believe I baited them to my colonies. So at that point, over that winter, I had made my decision. I'm never feeding sugar water again. I'm keeping bees in horizontal hives because it's better for the bees, better for the beekeeper. I am only trapping free feral bees, and that's how I'm going to do bees. If I can't do bees this way, I don't want to do bees at all, because I'd already started trying the other way, and it was like, you got to treat for varroa mites, you got to feed, you got to buy new bees every year. If you lose bees, you got to, you got to get in your hives every 7 to 10 days during the spring and tear down any queen cells you find, because you don't want your bees to swarm. If they swarm, you're losing your bees, and you're a failure. I believed all that stuff. I don't believe any of that today, and I don't teach any of that. Bees naturally swarm every single spring. A robust colony of bees comes out of the wintertime. They start bringing in nectar and pollen as fast as they can in February, March here in Middle Tennessee. The queen recognizes resources are coming in. She starts laying eggs because she's been in kind of a semi-hibernation. And next thing you know, inside of the colony, you've got this massive colony of bees that starts to have a conflict in there where there's no cell for the queen to lay an egg. And so what they do is they start building a princess cell, a queen cell. And after a few days, once that thing's developed, they kick the OG queen out the front door. All of the flying bees go with her, and that's what creates the swarm. So all the mature bees go with her. They leave with a belly full of honey. They're at the right age to produce wax, and the amount of work that watermelon swarm can get done in 10 days is absolutely astonishing. I have pulled down swarm traps out of trees that felt like they weighed 75 pounds, where it was just this, thin little plywood box with some frames, empty frames in it. And when I pulled it down after 10 days, they probably weighed 50 to 75 pounds. And that's because they were already packed full of honey. They were already packed full of brood. Yeah, and so when you go to the bee club, because they're promoting packages and nukes, they're telling you, hey, you got to feed them. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. If you start with those bees, you do have to feed them, and you're probably going to have to treat them for varroa mites because those two things have already been done, and they are not that watermelon swarm. And so you have to hold them up, prop them up. But a wild swarm, like I trap and catch in the spring, and like I teach, you don't have to do any of those things. And I have really good success rates. Everybody that I teach to do this has great success rates. It's sustainable. It's more natural. Natural is the bees living in a tree out there in the woods and us never touching them.
Right.
But thank God that he gave us dominion over this planet, and that he taught us through common sense and through some things to go out there and, hey, you know what? We recognize they cast a swarm, and they're actually really easy to dupe, and I can get them to move into a box, and then I can have removable frames with honey. I get honey, I give them a great place to live, and it's win-win, for both of us.
Sure.
But my whole thing, and this is opposite of the bee club, is that we beekeepers are probably, honestly, and people are not going to like to hear me say this, but beekeepers are probably the biggest liability to honeybees in America, in my opinion. We kill more bees than nature kills, I guarantee it. And then just propping up weak bees with treatment and with feed. Dr. Seeley is probably the person that I follow the most, and he's been studying bees since the mid-70s out of Cornell University, and he is a world-renowned entomologist, or he's just been studying bees since he was a kid. He fell in love with bees like I fell in love with bees when I was older. He fell in love with bees when he was like 15, 16, and so he has studied extensively bees in nature, and he is convinced, when varroa mite arrived in America, which was I think in the late 90s maybe, and of course it came from Asia, All of our bees in America actually originate from Europe. There are no native honeybees in America. So when the two things came together, the bees picked up this varroa mite, which for all intents and purposes is a bee tick, and it introduces diseases to the bees. And they did have catastrophic failure the first winter, 80% losses for the commercial bee industry, which is billions of dollars every year. The pollination in California and the almond orchard, and then the pollination across America, it's billions of dollars a year.
Right.
I'll bet in this current inflation economy, it's probably more like $20 billion right now. So it's an insane amount of money. But those bees collapse, and of course our knee-jerk reaction is to find a treatment, like let's reverse engineer this, let's figure something out. But Seeley now looks back, and he said if we had just focused all of our money, time, and energy on the 20% of bees that survived, we would have turned the entire thing around within 2-3 years. And he's not wrong. I don't think he's wrong, honestly. And here we are in 2026, still dealing with varroa mites. It's
Yeah,
totally...
I mean, you have this like golden opportunity of, it's a tragedy, and it's like extremely expensive, but you have this opportunity to take what you have and like use it appropriately to build out something that's resistant. And instead we took the essentially chem ag route with bees.
100%. And what we're actually doing, if you think about it, we're creating super bugs, right? Every time you treat a colony for varroa mites, you're going to have a survivor or two. Those survivors are becoming super varroa mites. And so it's just
we saw that in the healthcare
old...
industry with MRSA and C. diff and all these that are antibiotic resistant diseases that are nasty.
Yeah, 100%. So it's the same with the varroa mite. And that's why the chemical industry or the miticide industry, they're coming out with something new every year, because every year, last year's doesn't quite work now. You need to try this new one, and I'm sure that's $1 billion industry. So it's just, it's madness, and I won't do it. I don't teach it, and I teach people that there is another way, and that's what I do.
Now, I have a question about queens and getting a queen. Obviously, when you're buying them from somebody who raises them out, traditionally, they're going to be weaker, but can you tell us a little bit about how the process actually works? Like how a new queen would get, basically how she would get impregnated by, and who, I know it sounds a little weird, but how that actually keeps the hive stronger and the bees that come out of that stronger than a hive that you would buy.
Yeah. Don't worry, parents. I've taught the birds and bees a lot of times, and there's been a lot of kids in my classes, and I'm careful. Let's put it that way. It's pretty amazing. So, in the colony, and we'll just talk about the spring swarm and how they're doing it in nature, and this is how they do it in my hives as well. I have a colony that comes out of winter. They end up with that conflict that I talked about. They take one of the queen's eggs, and there are people out there that believe, and bees are super intelligent and they know what they're doing. They pick a specific egg in a specific location. It's 3 to 4 days old. It's just got a microscopic crack, like it hatched, like a little egg. And they start feeding it royal jelly. They blow out the wall of the cell, and they start making a queen cell. It's going to be about a 1 to 1.25 inch long cell. And they feed that princess royal jelly till about day 12, roughly. And they put a wax cap over that cell for her to finish developing in there. So what you have now is you have the colony chose a fertilized egg that's the daughter of the queen. They fed it royal jelly the entire time, which they don't do that to every larva. They only do this with the princess queen. And so when she, the OG queen gets forced out the front door, half the bees go with her. When the virgin queen hatches out, she now has a ton of young bees. She has all the resources still in the hive, except for what the bees took with them. But she has everything she needs to succeed. And so at this point, she's a baby bee. She does what every baby bee does, and they go and they get something to eat. She actually gets fed by the other bees. She walks around the hive, getting accustomed to the hive, stretching out her wings, getting her strength up because she's a baby. And then about roughly 4 or 5 days after that happens, she's going to go on her virgin mating flight. And so what she does is she orientates to the hive, and every single bee that graduates to flight school, they got to go through flight school. They go out to the entrance and they start taking mental pictures of the entrance. Then they start flying figure eights right out in front of the entrance, and they're taking photos, mental pictures of the hive, the hard objects, the trees, and they get farther and farther back to where they're orientated, and then boom, they can go out to 2 to 3 miles and come back to that exact location.
Wow.
So that's how they get their God positioning system, GPS, right?
That's right.
So they get dialed in there, and so she takes off and she goes on what's called a virgin mating flight. So the drone bees in the hive, the drone bees are the big male bees. They don't have a stinger. They have big, huge eyes, a husky body, and generally speaking, everything that we all see outside are worker bees, which are females and have a stinger. The drone bees primarily, this is all they do, is they fly out every day of the hive. They fly out on a nice day, and they make what's called a drone congregation cloud, and they fly around at about 26 miles an hour, racing each other in a big circle on a track, and they're just waiting for a virgin queen to show up. If she never shows up, they all come back to the hive about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's an absolute rush hour. It's pretty fun to watch and noisy, and they all come back for the evening. So this happens every day. So when a virgin queen shows up, they start chasing her. The cloud, they smell her pheromone. Every queen has her own unique queen pheromone. And so they start chasing that smell, and the 12 to 15 fastest drones catch up to her in flight. They impregnate the virgin queen using their endophallus. They actually break off their endophallus, and they fall to the earth deader than a doornail. They're done at that point. So the 12 to 15 fastest drones are the ones that get that work done. The virgin queen, after that's over, she comes back to the hive that she orientated to. She now has 20 to 25 million sperm stored inside of her abdomen, and she can live 5 to 7 years, which is totally insane. The worker bees, they only last about 4 to 5 weeks in the summer, and then in the winter they live about 4 to 5 months roughly. So that queen can swarm out, right? Once she's mated, she can actually swarm out of a hive 5, 6, 7 times in her life. Go into the watermelon swarm, end up in a new place, spend the year there, and then get kicked out again.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how that all works. It's the genetics of that queen is passed on through that princess queen, and then they're getting the genetics from the 12 to 15 fastest drones. Another interesting thing is that the drones from her colony will not breed her in the air. They will smell her pheromone, and they actually smell like her pheromone, and they will peel off the chase and
Sure.
wait for another day. So
How is that opposed? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask,
I was
how is
just
that
gonna
opposed to like traditional keepers as their artificial insemination? How do they do it in a more traditional beekeeping sense?
Yeah, so there's books out there, a lot of resources out there for raising queens, raising your own queens. I actually have one somewhere around here. So they will take an egg, and they'll take multiple eggs, a beekeeper, and then put them in a cell, a special queen cup, and they'll introduce those they'll make a colony queenless. They'll actually pull the queen out, put her somewhere else, and then put these queen cups that all have eggs in them in that colony, and they will immediately start raising multiple queens, like tons of queens. And so that's what beekeepers will do, is they'll raise a bunch of queens. They'll be there when the queens are hatching. They actually have to be there because the first queen that hatches, she can and will go around and sting all the other queens and kill them. So it's really it's pretty brutal. But that's how it's called grafting, and that's kind of how a lot of beekeepers make queens, so to speak. There's also splits, which I don't do. I allow my bees to swarm, and I either catch or trap those swarms. But a lot of beekeepers teach, and they do splits, where they'll take that colony before they come into that conflict. They'll take and they'll split off a colony, off the main colony. And what happens is, and this is the way I would do it if I was doing splits, is they call it a walkaway split. So basically, you're dividing the colony in half. You don't really care where that queen is, because one side is going to be queenless, the other side's going to have the queen. The side that's queenless is immediately going to start raising a new queen. So
Sure.
within probably 3 to 4 weeks, you can get into both those colonies, and you should find a laying queen in both of them if everything went right, if they were successful. So that's kind of some of the ways that people reproduce their own bees or produce queens. I have heard of artificial insemination, but I don't know anything about it, and honestly, I don't want to know anything about it. We don't even artificially inseminate our cows. We have a bull over here, so
Right.
we kind of let nature take its course as much as possible. I'm not knocking anybody that does artificial insemination with their cows. I get it. It's not that much fun to feed a bull 12 months out of the year, but it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think that kind of lays the groundwork, though, to at least to speak to how God's designed things so that these bee hives are strong and stay strong. And I've noticed, and I tried to do beekeeping for a little bit, and that's where I really ran into these issues where I'm like, well, why do I have to be in the hive every week? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I know there's a wild hive like a quarter mile away from me. They're fine. Nobody's in their hive every week. Right.
Right.
There's got to be a way to make this a lot less effort, and have much healthier bees.
Yeah.
Nobody's spraying them down with, whatever the new varroa treatment is.
Right.
They're doing fine.
Yep. No, it's funny, that first swarm that I trapped up there on top of the hill. This year I was up there. I've got bees up there, and I continue to trap bees off the top of that hill. And the sunlight was beaming through the trees just right. And I saw this. It was like orange lit up on the side of the tree, about 20 feet up off the ground. And I was like, what is that? And then all of a sudden I could see an insect or two flying around. And I went over there, and sure enough, it was a doggone bee tree that's not 25 yards from where I've been trapping bees for the last 6 years, 7 years. So it's hilarious, man. We, especially where we live, we happen to live in a great spot for honeybees. But there's places all over the nation where bees survive in harsh environments, and nobody's treating them, nobody's feeding them. They just continue to thrive, and they're hardy bees. They've evolved, they've adapted. Natural selection has made them tough. Like, all those things have worked for them. And it's true, when you've got all these bees surviving in abandoned houses and trees and all this stuff, and then you're going to tell me that they will not survive without feed or treatment. I'm not going to, I don't prescribe to that, and I don't believe that. So,
Yep. Jared, you got any questions for Adam?
I actually do. You mentioned horizontal hives. So describe what does that actually mean? I know nothing about. So
yeah, for sure. I'm glad you asked the question, because I was thinking that for sure at some point we would talk about that. And this is lower on my list as far as like natural sustainable beekeeping. You can, not treat, not feed, trap feral swarms, and keep them in the classic vertical boxes that are stacked up. So when I say that, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. 4 hives on a pallet out in the almond groves of California. You saw it a million times growing up. That is the Langstroth style hive that is widely used in the West. It was developed in America. It's used in Australia and Canada in the West. And shoot, we're probably I know we're taking it over to Africa and places like that, and teaching them how to keep bees in those hives.
All our worst ideas, we export them.
that's what we do.
Here, let me help you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, actually, because they have been keeping bees in like Ethiopia and some of these places in horizontal hives for how many thousand years?
Hmm.
Uh, Log hives, they do all this stuff, and then of course we go over there and we're like, here's a better way to do it. Um, so those vertical hives, and that's what I started with, and that's pretty much what everybody starts with, unless they find out about horizontal hives. On a vertical hive, you are removing boxes in order to do an inspection on your hive. And so when you do that, theoretically, like this time of year, if I thought I had an issue with one of my hives, I wanted to check, make sure my queen was laying, things were, make sure things were good. At this time of year, on a huge strong hive, I would have two honey supers, and then I would have two brood boxes underneath those honey supers. Each one of those honey supers can weigh, if it's a 10 frame deep box, it'll weigh 80 pounds. If it's a shallow frame or medium frame, it'll be more like 40 pounds. But still, that's a lot of weight to pick up, move off. And what you're doing when you do this is you're doing a full air exchange with the outside air, which God knows what's in that. You're changing the temperature. You're doing a total temperature change from what they've got going on inside. And they regulate their temperature really, really well. They've got their wings that they use as a HVAC system. And they keep it cool when it starts getting hot. And then they keep it warm when it starts getting cool. They're really good at it. So when you do that, you're really disrupting everything. You're tearing apart the house. And I don't care if you have somebody helping you or not, when you go to put it back together, even if you're smoking, you're going to smash bees. When you smash a bee, they put off an alert pheromone telling everybody else in the hive that we are being assaulted right now. And all the other girls come running, flying to
Sure.
see what's going on. And they see you standing there in a big white spacesuit, and they know who the threat is.
Yeah.
And so they come after you. You're not having fun. They're not having fun. Nobody's having fun. You put this entire thing back together and walk away, and you're like, golly, that was not fun. Those bees, I'm telling you right now, are going to remember that. And the next time you show up, according to the Bee Club, every 7 to 10 days during the spring, to make sure you got to tear down those queen cells, you don't want your bees swarming. When you show up, those bees see you as a threat as soon as you walk into the bee yard. Now, and I'll say one more thing about, so that's the biggest negative for me, is that it's really hard on the bees and the beekeeper keeping them in stackable boxes. Another part of it is that the insulating properties of the wall, the sidewalls on the box, so they're only about 3/4 of an inch thick. It's really interesting. When Langstroth originally developed that in the 1850s, it was 2 inches thick, is what the sidewalls of the box were.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, if we think about intelligent design, bees being out in hollowed out trees out in the middle of the woods,
Right.
Seeley found, he actually published it, that what he was finding was a average of 4 to 5 inch sidewalls on a hollowed out tree. And then, of course, above, you've got 100% insulation above because you got an entire
Yep.
tree sitting above you, right? So when you think about bees overwintering, and overwintering is basically the hardest thing to do for bees if you're the beekeeper. Basically, if you're keeping bees and you have not overwintered bees, you don't have anything. March 1st, now you've got something. So in those vertical hives that are made out of 3/4 inch construction, they come up with gimmicks and things that you can do. You can put a jacket on them. You can do all these things to insulate them better. But if you switch to horizontal hives, we build them out of 2-inch construction or insulated hives. Lots of people use insulated hives. And they're much more insulated than the vertical hives. And so that really comes into play in the wintertime for winter survival. Bees burn through more honey the less amount of insulation that they have. They use the honey to stay warm. So when you hear about bees, starving to death in somebody's vertical hive, my guess is they were burning through too much honey because they weren't insulated enough, right? And
Sure.
they ended up starving to death. So I find here in Middle Tennessee, and of course we don't have, I say we don't have real winters. We'll have some cold snaps,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll have a 7, 10, 12 day cold snap, whatever. But then we'll have, sunny and 45 degrees. My bees in these hives do really, really well here. They don't have any problem overwintering. I leave them honey, and when I come back in the spring and open them up, they haven't even touched the honey that I've left them. So that right there tells me that they are very well insulated and that they're not having to use all that honey to stay warm.
Awesome.
Hey,
Yeah,
Adam, I've
and
got
then
my nerd brain's running, and I've got a little
uh-oh.
thought on your on what you mentioned about trees, right? They've got 4 or 5 inches of insulation around them by the tree. But
Yeah.
one of the things that's amazing about the design of trees is that they're made to be solar water pumps. And so if you think about water being constantly pumped up and down through them from the earth, it's
Yeah.
taking that 55 degrees or 50-ish degrees from the earth, constantly running it next to these bees up
Yeah.
and down over and over again. And so not only are they getting the insulative value of the tree, they're also getting the benefits of basically earth temperature water constantly running by them.
Man,
And
that's
so
awesome.
in the summer, what the trees are going to do is they're going to pull that water from deep down, and then they're going to evapotranspirate that water. So you're looking at anywhere from about 90 to 98% of evaporation of the water that goes up, so that the tree can condense and consolidate the minerals. And so you've got this constant, it's like a little tiny stream constantly flowing by the bees that's going to keep them cooler especially during the summer. Winter, it's not going to have as high of an effect, but they'll have that large insulative value.
You don't have as much
around
sap
them.
flowing during the wintertime.
Right.
Yeah, so there's just not as much water going up into the tree because they're basically going dormant during
Their
the
own
winter.
personal radiant cooling system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like air conditioning for the bees.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Total sense. I had thought at one point. I just thought because I found bees. One of my first cutouts was on a huge cedar tree, and that's why we actually started building hives out of cedar because I'm like it's rot resistant, pest resistant. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But when I did that cutout on that tree, I noticed that I stuck my hand inside of there once I got the combs out and stuff, and I could feel that the temperature was cooler inside of there. It was a hot June day. I just kind of thought thermal regulation wise that it had to do with the soil temperature, but that makes total sense that it has more to do with the water that's being pulled up out of the ground that's 55 degrees or whatever it is. That's amazing. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, like I said, nerd brain running, because I actually teach a course where one of the things I talk about, because it's water management on the farm, and how trees they're a solar powered water pump, and they're constantly moving water up through and evapotranspiring it out into the atmosphere. It's such an incredible, they're a water pump, and they're pumping it hundreds of feet into the air oftentimes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is.
Let me follow up on the horizontal hive. I think I got one more thing on that. So when we're talking about, remember I told you how in the vertical hives you got to tear apart the entire house to get in to do a hive inspection,
Right.
and then it's extremely traumatic on the colony, and you because you've got violent bees trying to hurt you. On a horizontal hive, you're only ever removing one frame at a time, ever. So on a horizontal hive, the bees are building over rather than building up. Okay.
Oh.
And they have no problem doing this. Like there's no hiccup. Bees are, I'm sure y'all have seen pictures of bees living in, between 2 floors of a house, a condo, whatever. I just saw one the other day. Oh my gosh, it was it looked like a big electrical panel, like probably a 400 amp or something, and it was completely packed full of honeybees. Top to bottom. You could barely see the wires in there. I'm like, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
That's gonna be fun. So the bees have zero problems at all adapting to a horizontal configuration. And so just so you can get it in your mind, inside of the boxes, whether it's vertical or horizontal, the frames are sitting in there vertically. A lot of people are like, wait, horizontal, so you turn the frame sideways?
Yeah, right.
No. They still hang in there with gravity. Bees build with gravity. That's how they build their combs. And so in a horizontal hive, they're just basically the bees are they're growing over rather than growing up. So that's basically it on the horizontal hives. The insulating properties, very, much less traumatic. And at the homestead festival that we just did, we did demos both days, and I had 2 hives out there, horizontal hives, and nobody has protective equipment on. We go out there, open up 2 hives. I had two of my friends be beekeepers both days, and pull out a frame with bees on it, honey, and turn around, and I've got 100 people that I don't know coming through to take honey right off that frame and taste it for the first time.
Wow.
Possibly tasting real raw honey for the first time, if I was to guess, because everything else is adulterated. We just had a blast and nobody got stung. Well, allegedly one of my beekeepers might have taken a sting to the back of the head. But I do this kind of stuff all of the time, and I love it. I love teaching about bees, and we'll have kids classes over here, homeschool classes and stuff. And most of the time, as long as the beekeeper is very careful, we don't have people get stung. And my bees don't have that PTSD that if I was keeping them in vertical hives, they would have it. I'm telling you right now, there are no beekeepers on this planet, unless they're keeping bees like I am. If they're keeping bees conventionally, they would never have you come over to their bee yard without protective equipment on. They would never get into bees without protective equipment on. Never. So I have nice bees. They're not nice bees. They're just bees that I haven't assaulted, and they don't mind me. They don't look at me as a threat. Is the thing. So let me red pill you real quick on honey.
Sweet.
Well, I pretty much did at the beginning.
Oh, give us the juicy details.
I mean, we touched on it, but I'm telling you right now that most beekeepers, 99% of beekeepers in America, feed their bees sugar water or corn syrup. If they're not diligent in how they do that, that will become honey inside of that hive. And when they extract it, that will get into your honey that you're buying from them in the quart jar.
Sure.
And then especially at the commercial level. Why would they have... And so I'm not a fan of regulation. I'm not a fan of big government. But I will tell you, honey is unregulated in America. And so that means you could be getting... Who knows what you're getting. Especially from the commercial industry, we used to buy that, I think it was a 2-pound, 3-pound, I was thinking it was 3-pound can of honey at Costco. I remember doing this back in the day, and I guarantee that has trace amounts of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, miticides, and it's got corn syrup and sugar water in it. I guarantee it's got all those things in it.
Sure.
So if we are taking, mankind's been taking honey for medicinal purposes for 6,000, 10,000 years, whatever. If we want medicinal honey, and I want my bees to have medicinal honey to stay healthy, then I'm not going to feed them anything. And I would encourage all of your listeners to ask the questions, and they can ask them in a innocent way, somewhat, but just basically like, hey, I hear it's a thing that beekeepers feed and treat for various things. Do you do that? And so you could ask your beekeeper that if you want to get the cleanest honey. You're going to get what you pay for. I'll tell you that too. For the most part, somebody like me, because I leave my bees plenty of honey all of the time. They always have plenty of honey because that's the last thing I want to do is starve my bees. So they've just always got plenty of honey. So that means I don't necessarily make a ton of honey. But sure. I can tell you, on one of these big horizontal hives, if I've got a huge swarm that I trapped or caught, and they make it over winter and they explode in the spring, I can expect over 100 pounds of honey out of one colony of bees. So you're talking about 33 quarts of honey. That's a lot of honey out of one colony.
So how do you determine when and then how much honey to pull from a hive?
So basically what I teach is, for here in Middle Tennessee, there's 3 times that I'm going to get into the hive if I want honey. And so on an overwintered colony, I'm going to get into those bees in March when the flow just starts, when the blooms just start to bloom, and I'm going to do what's called a spring expansion and give them room to grow. And then in June, right now, I'm going to go in there and see what they did, and any capped honey that I find in there, basically I can take it. Especially in my lands. I'm running 2 different frame styles, and you need to come take my Bee Kept boot camp so I can teach you about the 2 styles. But in the lands, which is a European style deeper frame, I can take all the capped honey frames I want, because the bees naturally produce about a 4 to 5 inch honey rainbow over the top of every single brood frame where the baby bees and the queen is, and that's enough honey for those bees to survive the summer dearth and the winter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the lands frame is more, it's easier. There's no math involved. Now, Langstroth, with the Langstroth deeps, and that's what we run in all of our horizontal hives, the ratio is 2 to 1. So for every 2 frames of bees or brood, I'm going to leave them 1 frame of nectar or honey. And that's a really conservative amount of honey to leave them to survive the summer dearth and the winter. And I've never had a colony starve leaving them that honey.
Nice.
Yeah, and then they will not touch capped honey unless they need it. It's like they're the best preppers and preparers on the planet. And they won't touch it. They'll touch everything else. They've got nectar in there, and they'll work up in their brood frames into the honey, but the excess honey, they usually don't touch it. And I've been shocked multiple times when I get in March and find that there's still tons of honey. So I will take honey in March when I do the spring expansion, in June after the summer or spring flow, and then in October I do a fall contraction. I get them into the tightest space possible, make sure they have enough honey, and if they have extra honey at that time, I'll take it then. But my main haul is in June.
Very cool. As you think about how you're doing this, or as I think about how you're doing this, it sounds to me like a lot less work overall than, traditional beekeeping. And that's one of the things that really, when I heard you speaking at the Back to the Lamb Festival, I was like, this sounds like what we should be doing. Can you talk about, do you have a breakdown of what the hours that you're putting into this per hive or per pound of honey, or do you have any type of metrics there that kind of compare between the 2 ways of keeping bees?
That's a good question. I really don't. But what I will say, if you go to the bee club, they're going to tell you during the spring, during swarm season, which for us starts March 1st and ends about July 1st, that you need to be getting in there every 7 to 10 days, tearing down any queen cells that you find so that you don't lose a swarm.
Right.
And as soon as June hits, you're going to be putting feeders on, because you're going to pull all their honey, every bit of honey they have. You're going to put sugar feeders on. You're going to continue to get into them during the summer, and then the fall flow will start, and you'll probably continue feeding them. Conventional beekeepers, they'll get into there in December, January, and they'll put pollen patties, which is a substitute for pollen in there to stimulate growth, to get them fired up for the following spring. So conventional beekeeping is a ton of maintenance and a ton of time. And if you had 10 hives doing conventional beekeeping, you would be very busy most of the year. And so on my side, what I teach people is, if you want honey, basically 3 times a year, 3 inspections a year, and that's it. We're not getting into them every 7 to 10 days. We're not doing any of that stuff. And we're just letting the bees be bees in general. We're just leaving them alone, letting them do their work. And we're getting some of that rent honey at the end of the day, my way is definitely the way, for most homesteaders, we've got a ton of things going on, you might be working a full-time job, you might not be, you might be full-time on the homestead, but there's just, on our homestead, we have a ton of things going on every single day. I milk cows every single morning. We have a lot going on. And so the least amount, even though I love playing with the bees and getting into the bees, the least amount that I can get into them, I know the better for the bees. And so this model for me is what works, and I love it. And so this is what I teach and preach to others.
Yeah,
So
and
to answer
as
your
far as
question, I really don't have
enjoyability,
that. Yeah.
I was just going to say, as far as enjoyability, what would you, obviously that's not something you can put metrics to, but what would you say the difference is in how enjoyable it is to keep this way as opposed to traditionally?
It's huge. I when you've got bees trying to sting you, through your veil, and they're super upset, and I don't like taking bee stings. I don't like that at all. Um, to me, it's a pleasure for me to get into my hives when I do, and when they're not, angry at me. And I don't have to do much. And I keep bees like this a lot. Most of the time, I have my big hat on, glasses, and a t-shirt, and I got my smoker going, and I use it just as I need it. But I don't go crazy with the smoke. But I love it. I love doing it the way I do it, and it really is enjoyable. And I love getting other people into bees and showing them, pulling out a frame and letting them taste honey off the frame. And um, so, yeah, I mean, honestly, if I didn't find this way of doing bees, and this happens a lot, if I didn't find this way of doing bees, I might have given up. And I know tons of other people. Every year, it's crazy. The bee club is always kind of complaining about getting more people into it, getting young people into it.
Yeah.
You go there, and I'm not gonna disparage, but you go there, and like, I'm the youngest guy there, and of course I'm not very young. Uh, it's a lot of older people, and they're always kind of wanting to get younger people involved. And I don't know, the way that they do bees is not fun, and
No.
it ends in failure a lot. It ends in a lot of money out. The cost to get going. I call them off-grid bee cabins. I've built two off-grid bee cabins for the cost of the screws and maybe the aluminum, the smooth coil for the roof. But you could build a box out of just about anything and paint it, and bees don't care. So you can do this on a shoestring budget. You
Sure.
can also come to me, and I'll have a really nice cedar hive built for you by the Amish. And
Bougie.
yeah, and it'll look like a piece of furniture out in your garden. It'll look beautiful. But your initial investment in honey will come back in honey in a hurry.
Sure.
Once you trap a feral swarm, God willing, it lasts that first winter, and you pull 100 pounds of honey. That right there would pay for everything you've put into it to that point. So,
So, if people are looking at wanting to do this, I assume you've got some resources you could probably tell them about, ways that, I'm sure if they're like me or Jared, they could hop on YouTube and Google and whatnot and kind of piece it together. But if people wanted something that's a little bit more holistic and rounded and experienced, what are some of the things that you offer for that?
yeah, so we have a website, beekept.com, and we do a lot of teaching. That's a huge part of what I do. We offer Beekept boot camps, is what we call them. It's a 5-hour hands-on class here at our farm. And I teach you everything from A to Z as fast as I can. It's a crash course, but the second half of the day, you spend all your time pulling frames out of hives and identifying what's on those frames. So you get over the fear factor, you get experience pulling bees out of hives, and by the time you leave, you're totally confident on you being able to handle bees, and then also identifying what you're looking at on the frame. So those are a lot of fun. We run those in March, April, and September. So we will have dates coming up in September on Saturdays. And then I do custom, I will do whatever anybody wants me to do. So I have full service beekeeping that I'll go and I'll coach or mentor somebody else on their property, do consultations, get them hives set up, help them trap swarms, get the bees into the hives. Stand there and I'll take pictures while they're doing the bees. It's like I'll do anything that people want me to do. We have a father-son actually coming this Friday that they want to do a bee kept boot camp, and so I'm gonna and they're I think he's a 14-year-old boy. He read my book and he's just like totally hooked. And he was me when I was 14, right? I was busy looking outside the window, and all I needed was some sort of an outlet like this, like bees. So anyways, all that to say, they're going to come over on Friday, and we're going to have a boot camp, impromptu. It's not normally the time of year we do it, but I'll do whatever. I did write a book, Bee Kept with Wild and Free Honeybees. In that book, I talk a lot about my experiences, and then I also talk A to Z, how I do things, why I do them, how I do them, and so that's a really good, I would say, beginner or intro into more natural, sustainable beekeeping. A lot of fun stories in there.
I've got that shared, so you can pull that up if you're able to. I can't do it from my side.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, look at that. Y'all are techie. Yeah, so there's my book. Had a lot of fun writing it, and it's got a lot of funny stories in there about me getting stung and all kinds of fun stuff. Kids love it, and adults love it too. So it's a good book. We recorded a online course through the School of Traditional Skills, and so that is still available on their platform. We are working on our own online course at the moment, so hopefully that'll be coming out here.
Nice.
Yeah, we're working on it. We've got it. We're working on it. It's not that far off. We did record our book on audio, but that's not quite out yet. And then we also did a Kindle version, I guess, ebook. And I think, I'm not sure if that's out yet or not, but you can look for it at least, whatever.
Right.
I didn't see it on Amazon on a cursory search, but
yeah, I don't think it's out yet. We're working on it. It's not quite there yet, but we're working on it. Let's see here.
But people can order the book through the website, right?
Yeah. So what it does is it's cool. We're with Sawdust Publishing, and we love those guys. And so if you buy it now or whatever, you click Pay Now, it's going to ship directly from Sawdust Publishing to you. So it's pretty sweet. We don't have to do anything other than have it up on our website.
Nice.
So we like that. It's a good little deal for us. Janet Garman over there at Sawdust Publishing handles all that for us, which is great. And then, guest speaking appearances. I was just at the Homestead Festival. I'll be at the Homesteaders of America conference, their 10th annual in Front Royal, Virginia in October. And they sell, I think it's 5,000 to 6,000 tickets for that. And it's massive, and it's great. It's the Super Bowl of homestead events. So if you can make it to that, it's the middle of October. It's a great time, and I'll be guest speaking up there and hanging out the whole time. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah. What else? I think that's pretty much the learning opportunities through us.
Cool. And if some random person who runs a big homesteading festival is watching this, I assume you'd be up for being contacted about speaking there.
Yeah, 100%. So this all started with a love of honey. It became a love of honeybees, and now today it's a love of teaching about honeybees and what I do. And so I love to guest speak. I'll go talk to a little homeschool group in Cookeville, Tennessee, or I'll go talk to 800 people in a tent wherever. Like I'm all about it, and I'm basically a promoter of natural, sustainable beekeeping. I didn't write the book on this stuff. Thomas D. Seeley is to me, he's the guy. And there's plenty of other people in this space that are teaching more natural, sustainable beekeeping. But there's only one of me, and I love teaching people about honeybees and feral swarms and catching their own swarms, and I love doing that. So yeah, I would love to get more speaking engagements for sure. Our calendar for 2027 is wide open at the moment, so hit me up and we'll get something figured out.
Jared, there's a few questions that came up. I can't pull them up with our new system. Would you be willing to pull a few of those up?
Which one you want?
Oh, let's see. Rocky Pines.
Rocky had something he wanted to know about protective garments, I think was his question.
Yeah, he was asking about, he was wondering if there you go.
So you don't have to get geared up at all. Like when you're interacting with your bees, you're not really wearing much.
Correct. So when I'm messing with my bees, I'm just like this: no gloves, t-shirt, glasses, hat. That's it. But as a mentor, I do tell everybody you need to start out with a jacket, veil, and probably gloves, definitely gloves, because the first time you take a sting on the hand and you're holding a frame full of bees,
Oh,
your reflexes are going to be to let that go.
sure.
I have gotten way too used to getting stung, and so it hurts every time, but I'm able to power through it. So what I would do, the first thing I would lose is the gloves, because what happens is you can get a bee underneath your glove and you don't even know it, and you smash that bee
Oh,
when you go to pick up a frame. You can use latex or nitrile gloves, medical aid gloves. They
yeah.
work great. But and then barehanded, like I do it. If you want, when you're ready to cowboy up, those bee suits are so hot. You can't imagine when you're messing around with bees in the middle of the day in June in Middle Tennessee. It's brutal. So if you keep bees in horizontal hives and you don't assault those bees, you keep them nice, you can get away with cowboying up like I do. So it's a
Right
good
on.
question.
And Rocky Pines also, or Vic, I guess over there, had mentioned he's got bees all around him, and we hit on this after he said the comment, but he was thinking about tracing them. What would be your advice? Should he track them back to where they go, or should he, what's a bee trap look like, and how do you go about that?
So there is a technique that Seeley talks about in one of his books called beelining. If you've ever heard the term beeline,
Hmm.
that's where it comes from, is
Oh,
beelining. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, I mean, I'll just use this for an example. We're going to act like this is a little box, and you've got a little lid on it, and you open it up, and you've got a little dot of honey in there, and you just go out to a field where you know that there's bees, or a water hole, or a tree that's blooming, whatever, and the bees are going to smell it, and a bee is going to come down and land in there and start drinking that honey, and you can take a little paint pen, put a little dap right on its thorax, and it'll just sit there and eat away, and then as soon as it's got a belly full, it takes off, and you want to time it and see the direction that it goes, and you're going to time how long it takes for that bee to fly off and then come back with 2 or 3 more bees. And you're going to be checking the direction, and you're going to paint those bees. And this can be, this is something fun you could do for all day long.
so yeah,
But
bearing
that's,
and direction. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
distance. Nice.
yeah. So they'll, that's how Thomas D. Seeley did it, was he did beelining to go track down all of these trees in the Arnott Wilderness to do his studies. And so you got to have some time and some patience, but it'd be kind of fun to do it. I've never done it. I've wanted to do it. So swarm season here in Middle Tennessee is about March 1st to July 1st, roughly. As soon as the white clover dries up, for me, that's the end of swarm season. And the reason is because if I trap a swarm or catch a swarm after that point, I will have to prop up those bees, because there's nothing out there to go get. There's
Sure.
nothing out there to go eat. And so for me, I don't want to do that. Now, if I got called in July or August and somebody said, "Hey, there's bees in a wall. We want to pay you to
Sure.
come out and remove these bees," I'm going to go do that job. I'm going to get those bees, and then what I'm either going to do is I'll combine them with one of my colonies, or I'll steal some resources from one of my colonies to give to them, so that I don't have to feed sugar water or do anything like that. So those are the reasons why swarm season for me is about July 1st, roughly, when it ends. Seeley wrote the book on swarm trapping. It's really easy. The biggest key things are the container size. He found that the median cavity size out in nature was about 1.4 cubic feet, or 40 liters.
Oh,
And that happens to be the exact same size that Langstroth came up with for his 10 frame box, which is really interesting. So you want to go bigger with swarm traps. You don't want to go smaller. So that median size, you want at least have that size of a swarm trap, if not bigger. Um, and then basically, bees prefer, the higher you go, the more preferable it is to the bees with the swarm trap. But I tell people that this is way low on the list. I've trapped bees on the ground at 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet. Bees they're suckers. They will come to an empty box that smells like bees, have lived there before. Lemongrass essential oil is the attractant. You want to go really light on the inside. You can go heavy on the outside to try to draw in swarms from miles away. but you want to go really light on the inside. Bees have 200 times our sense of smell, and if you go heavy on the inside, they'll show up and they will refuse to move in. So if you send me a picture of a big, huge swarm hanging off the bottom of your swarm trap, I know exactly what you did wrong.
That's fine. So Vic also wanted to know. So yeah, if you're doing a swarm trap, then you don't really need to do a trace.
Correct. So yeah, the swarm trap is the way to go, and it's literally you just bait that sucker, set it up, face it south is another thing. Seeley said that the bees preferred. Again, it's not a deal breaker, and yeah, you just set it up and let it go. We do these little time release capsules with the lemongrass essential oil that we put inside the traps, and they last the entire season. So that first year when I trapped the first swarm, I was going up there every 7 to 10 days roughly and putting 3 drops on a Q-tip and shoving it through the front door of the swarm trap.
Sure.
So now I don't have to do that. So we sell these little...
Smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly. If I don't have to go back to those traps until they're full of bees, the better.
Cool. Jared, we had a super chat from Aaron Clary.
Okay, so I have to know what in the world.
All right. So
what?
This was like 20 years ago now, almost. Megan and I had rented this little tiny, like 600 square foot upstairs of what was already a pretty small house that had been turned into an apartment. And while we were there, the guy we were renting from sold the home. And so this new guy who bought it moves in underneath us. So now our landlord lives under us, right?
Oh no.
And we're quiet, like it's boring, but anyways, so he's living under us, and then eventually we end up renting the direct house next door that's like 800 square feet instead of 600 square feet.
Ooh.
But during that time, we end up hanging out with our new landlord and hanging out with the group of people he's got over. And he's always having some bonfire or whatever in the backyard. So it turns out his name's Aaron Clary. He now he's got, I don't know, like 8 books or something out, and he's got a pretty big YouTube following. And so when he saw that I was doing YouTube, he started sending people my way, which is how my channel kind of got going. But anyways, he's trolling me with, never rent to Ryan. He's a horrible tenant.
He paid $10 to say that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Aaron.
Heck yeah.
So anyways, that's
I guess I forgot
there.
to mention we are on Instagram, Facebook. We've got some YouTube videos out there. We're not big on YouTube, but check us out.
What's your handle?
Of course you would ask that. At Being Kept on Instagram. My wife handles the Instagram side, so and then Be Kept on Facebook. And then I think it's at Being Kept on YouTube.
Nice.
I think. I'm pretty sure.
But
you could Google. Yeah, you can search Be Kept or Adam Martin. And I've been featured on some other people's big channels, which has been a blast. I was on Sean's farm a couple times this last year, and people loved it. So I've been on some other. I've been a guest. I don't know what you call it, featured guest on somebody else's big YouTube channel, and that's always fun.
What was your favorite YouTube channel to be on, besides ours, of course?
Okay.
Oh, you guys have YouTube?
Oh. Yeah.
Let's see. I was on another one. I was on with Billy Bond. The permaculture pimp or pimpcast.
Yeah, permaculture pimpcast. Yeah,
I'm a fan of Billy. I like him a lot. So we've hung out quite a few times at festivals and stuff, and he's a salt of the earth kind of guy. I like him. We have a lot of fun together.
Nice.
I went to dinner with him and his wife and a group of other people, and I walked away for a couple minutes to go grab something. By the time I got back, he and his wife had paid the bill for everybody.
Aw.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just cool guy.
That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's neat. No, he is. They're very neat people. He actually bought one of my horizontal hives for his wife for her birthday.
Nice.
We were at the same festival a couple of years ago, and he got a hold of me ahead of time. He's like, "Hey man, I want to figure this out. Let's do this. You need to bring this hive to me, and I'm gonna give it to her. She's not gonna know." And we pulled it off. It was pretty cool. She was totally surprised. So hopefully the bees are doing good in there right now. I think they've had it for a couple of years, but yeah, no, I have fun on any of these that I get to go on. I enjoy talking about bees and hanging out, so it's fun.
Before we let you go, what's your craziest bee story?
Oh boy. Well, you'll definitely. I won't give away any in the book. There's some good ones in the book, some pretty funny ones, and y'all will laugh. Every time that I've had, the craziest bee stories, of course, are the ones where I get stung way too many times, 25 times in a matter of minutes.
Ow.
And it's usually because I have no protective equipment on, and I'm doing something I know I shouldn't do, and it's stupid. So the homestead festival that we were just at, you and I were there. Rory Feek and Rebecca Feek, who owned that farm, they had won a hive at a local auction. It was a benefit for a school, and I had donated a bee kept boot camp and a book and some other stuff to go with the hive. But my friend who had built the hive, he also included a trap swarm. And so we set this whole thing up where, hey, Adam's going to come out, do a consultation on site. We'll bring the hive out. We'll have the bees there. We'll put the bees in the hive. It'll be great. So we all went out there, and I know I didn't bring any protective equipment. And I just thought, no big deal. Everybody's going to be filming, of course. So, I'm gonna be very careful, and we'll get this done. Well, we got there, and the sky started turning black. Oh. And it was like, oh, it's getting ready to let loose. And so it was just one of those things where we just tried to do it as fast as we could to get it done. And I had my poor buddy Mark Sego. He if he sees this, he's gonna laugh. But he's standing next to me. He wasn't wearing anything, and normally he wears stuff. And he's kind of got the same haircut as Jared there. And kind of similar to mine. So he's standing there assisting me, and I pull out a frame or two, and things went sideways in the trap. Oh. And it started to rain, and if it starts to rain, bees go completely irate. And all of a sudden, I see Mark off to my left. Man, he just starts smacking his head. And we both had to have taken 20 to 25 stings in a matter of 30 seconds,
Ow.
And it was just, I'm just throwing stuff in there and closing it up, and we just ran away and went back, and it just started raining, and it was horrible. So, unfortunately, the stingy events are the funny ones, kind of. So I'd say that's a funny one.
Yeah, I got bees in the hood at one point, like 7 or 8 bees inside of it, because there was a faulty Velcro section. No fun.
Yeah. Were they upset? Were they stinging?
Oh yeah, they were mad.
Oh jeez. Yeah. Every once in a while I'll get one in because I wear my big hat, and then if I think there's a chance, if I'm going to be doing something, where I think that there's a chance, I'll throw my veil on over it. So it just sits on my big hat. But it just sits on my shoulders. So every once in a while I'll get a bee that'll come up in there, and it's like they get into the tent, when you're out camping, and they're just trying to figure out how to get out.
Right.
They're not trying to sting me. They're just trying to figure out how to get out. So usually I'll just sit there and keep working, and after a few minutes I'll walk away, 10, 15 feet and pull my hat off and let the thing out, and it'll fly off. But usually, like I said, my bees are pretty calm, and they stay pretty calm. So I also call it checking the mood. When I go to get into bees, I'll have the smoker going, and when I pop a cover board or I separate frames, if I get 2 or 3 bees like blasting out of there and like aggressively looking at me, then I'm like, ooh, something's going on here. These bees don't want to be messed with today. And at that point I make a decision like, okay, I might just leave you girls alone, come back here in a week or two, see how you're doing. In general, I don't get into my hives unless I think there's a problem, and that's a big part of how I do bees, is just observing the entrance. If the activity at the entrance is normal on any given day, then there's zero reason for me to get into those bees, you know. And
Sure.
so that's one of the things that I teach is that the observation at the entrance is critical and key. And if you can stay out of the hive in general, you should try to, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a major takeaway just in general. Our podcast constantly in this specific one is observation is always key.
Yep.
You know, if you can step back and observe something and go, why is that happening? How is that happening? What is that thing? You can almost always solve the problem in some way, in a much simpler
Yep.
way than you're told you should.
Yep, 100%.
Well, Adam, I think you gave us kind of your rundown on where to find you. We'll do our spiel then. Jared, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Sure. All right. So I am Jared Wilson. I own Resilient Living. We have a physical storefront halfway between Sparta and Spencer, right on Highway 111, where we sell guns and ammo, do gunsmithing, as well as freeze-dried foods, general preparedness items, and then a whole smattering of books covering a lot of the topics that we talk about: homesteading, animal husbandry, gardening, all the way through to survival manuals and such. So yeah, if you're in the Middle Tennessee area, stop by the shop. If I don't have it on the shelf, I can most likely get it. And no matter what, I love having the conversation. So stop by, say hi, and yeah, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think that's all of them. Anyway, they're on the ticker. Resilient Living is our handle on just about everything.
And get your Father's Day gift there, or
That's right.
or from Adam. Maybe he wants to know about natural beekeeping. Get a book or a class. So yeah, actually, some really great options for Father's Day. And I know it's tough to find gifts for Dad, right?
Yeah.
I'm Ryan Steva. I run the Homestead Consultant, and the homesteadconsultant.com is where you can find me. I started putting up articles, so written articles on various topics that I think could be really helpful for people. So if you want to check those out, that's kind of the new thing I'm doing. But I help by giving people consultations on their property towards their goals with their resources, all that. I help people figure out how to do that efficiently and make as few mistakes as possible along the way. So that's me. And Adam, thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciated your time. Love the conversation. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. And yeah, appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
All righty, y'all.